I just wanted to quickly touch on what Frida was saying about regards mobility, because it has been suggested by some learned individuals that the main function of our brain, of the human brain, is not to philosophise or to theorise, but it's actually to coordinate movement. And when you put that in the context of what we're talking about today, it makes sense about of why we're so vitally interested in this. The second point I'd like to make is that we seem to throw some numbers around which I think upon a bit closer examination are maybe a little bit crazy, and that is when we're thinking about what is the world going to look like in 2030, it's actually not particularly far away. I mean, if you look back, it's only the year 2000. And so Rupert mentioned a decade view, and I think I tend to agree with that if you think about the development of vehicles, 15 years is maybe 2 or 3 development cycles for a car, so it's not very long. I want to just dive into one particular aspect of mobility, and I'll go a little bit deeper perhaps than some, and it's been set up quite nicely. So I just wanted to talk about how we get energy into the vehicles to facilitate this mobility that we've got. So I'll just dive in. And I think we've heard from some of the speakers so far that we have a potential new realm surrounding a vehicle, and that is really looking at producing a vehicle which is safer, so they don't crash into people, pedestrians, motorcyclists or each other, other cars, that are cleaner, that are connected and that are more convenient. And I think that's perhaps my slogan for the day is now, when you look at vehicles, and these are just some aspects of dotted around the car, of new technologies which, when you have a connected element to the car, are available. And that means things like mobile hotspots, it means wellness monitoring, it means connectivity, and it allows us to do a lot more thing with a car than we have hitherto when we look out into the museum and see some of the vehicles that are pretty much disconnected. I'm going to touch most specifically here on wireless charging. Now, I just wanted to sort of step back a little and just talk about why, in fact, we are having this discussion in the first place. And that's because there are some pretty major societal trends happening that are presenting us with challenges. And the first one is the growth of our populations in our urban centres. And that is happening from 2 aspects. One is that people are reproducing more, so there are more of us, but also there are more people going into the cities. And the number I heard, which has been resonating in my mind most powerfully, is that about 1 million people a week more live in our cities every week as we stand here today. And that's predicted to carry on for the next 40 years. So another 4 billion people will live in our cities up to 2050 rather. Now, if you take that statistic and then look at the fact that these people need to move around, and we already have congestion problems, we already have air quality problems, we're going to exacerbate those issues. The health cost of that poor air quality, estimated by the World Health Organisation, as about 600 billion euros by 2020 if we do nothing today. So when people are asking where does the money come from to pay for these lovely advancements and infrastructure installations, I would point to that, because $1 spent to save someone from illness is much better than $1 spent to cure them from it. And then latterly, the strain on our infrastructure, and I think we've heard a number of interesting angles of how by looking at using different ways of moving people around the city, whether it be by shared vehicles, autonomous vehicles, swarming vehicles which park themselves, how we can reduce that strain and therefore move about our cities more easily. Now, one of the answers that we've probably surmised on a little is the relevance of an electric vehicle to solve some of these problems. Rupert mentioned that. And having an electric vehicle which is connected, to me, is quite a delicious prospect. It provides us with a more efficient way of moving. having an electric motor which is spinning in a direction which the car wants to move, rather than some pistons going up and down in different directions, not the direction of travel, is obviously more efficient. Less pollution at the tailpipe, and you could say that, okay, well, they need electricity and it's a coal-fired plant up the road, but in fact, we're not living by the coal-fired plant predominantly, we're living in the cities, so our health of the population improves. They are quieter, so you can imagine a building with a window in it all of a sudden. More windows in buildings, less air conditioning, less electricity to drive that. So you get this virtuous circle of the built environment changing for the better. Now, some of the challenges with electric vehicles, I think, because they are, on the one hand, a lovely nirvana position, if we get it right, but they also come with some challenges. Strangely, one of the biggest challenges is also the enabling element of it, which is the battery. Without batteries, we wouldn't have an electric car, but in fact, because they're heavy, they're expensive, they have low energy density compared to our liquid fuels, they're slow to charge, they therefore impact the vehicle badly. So we have a vehicle which is expensive, it's got poor handling dynamics, and it hasn't got a particularly good range. So what we're asking people to do is to spend more money on a worse proposition, and that's never going to fly. Some of the other barriers are getting the infrastructure in place to charge these electric vehicles, and this is really what I want to dive into, because I think if we're looking at a vehicle which needs charging 2, 3, 4 times a day to get us, of a decent range, and some people say, okay, well, the average drive of a vehicle is, maybe 40 miles, so every electric vehicle is fine. But I sense that those people don't drive an electric vehicle because when I drive mine, it's fine if I'm going back and forth to work, during the week. But on a weekend, if I want to go to the market and then I want to drop the kids at rugby and then I want to go and do something else, that's when it actually hurts, and that's when you need a second car. So if we can charge the vehicles a bit differently, then perhaps we've got a better hope. So my proposition is that if instead of charging the vehicles once a day, or even once every 2 days, like we do with a petrol or a diesel vehicle, but in fact we charge them little and often. So we charge the vehicle at home, we charge the vehicle at work, at the supermarket, at the gym, at the doctor's surgery. All of a sudden, the amount of range that car has and the time that it takes to charge is less of a negative impact on the vehicle. You can also imagine too that if we charged taxis, for example, as they were slowly migrating along a taxi rank, or even charged a vehicle while it drove along a connecting road or a ring road, then in fact we take that whole negative element of battery storage and charge time completely off the table, and now we have a vehicle which is fit for purpose. In fact, we can reduce the battery in all likelihood and take some of the cost out of it. So we probably have before us a vehicle which is quite a nice proposition. Now, to do that, unfortunately, you probably can't plug the thing in, because if you're having to jump out of the car every sort of 10 minutes, or you're going to the supermarket and you're only running in for a loaf of bread or some coffee, you're unlikely to go to the boot of the car, undo the boot, take the cable out, close the boot, run to the front of the car, open a flap, plug it in, go to this wall-mounted box, touch your card on it, plug it in, because, as you get the impression, it's a bit tedious. And we know I do this every morning when I go to work, and in fact, I think about it every morning when I get there. I think, do I really need to charge? Am I in a hurry? What's the range I've got left? And what am I doing tonight? And it actually does get tedious. It takes the fun out of an electric car. So what I'm suggesting is that if we used a wireless charging system where you just have to park the car, you don't do anything different to what you do with a diesel or a petrol car today. You always have to park the car, you always have to get out of the car. If you do that and the charging is automatic, then you can start charging the car every time the car stops. You could go as far as to charge at traffic lights, and you can imagine the funny scenarios there where people don't move instead of moving. Now I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. Just give you a very, very brief, I'm looking at the clock, very, very brief introduction as to how you can do this, because it's a little bit magical, and I've been working on this for quite some time, and it still surprises me. In fact, when we generate electricity, normally we do this in reverse. We move something against something else, a coil against a solenoid, for example, to generate the electricity. This, in effect, is the opposite at the other end. So what we do is we have a wall box on the wall. It's plugged into the grid. Grid energy comes out at 60 hertz. We take it up to about 85,000 hertz. We cable that up to a pad on the ground. It makes a strong magnetic field. And when the car goes over that pad, it switches on, and you induce a current on a pad on the car about the size of a laptop, takes it off to a controller which rectifies it down to DC, and you charge the batteries with it. And it all happens just like that. And it does allow us the ability to charge a vehicle without really doing anything, fully automatically. Interestingly, you can do this while you're moving, and in fact, the very early work that we did, which has resulted in about 8,000 installations of this around the world in ports and car assembly plants, etc., and silicon wafer manufacturer, is dynamic. So the vehicles, the automatic guided vehicles going around a factory floor, etc., pick up power as they go, and they don't have batteries, they just go straight to the motors. Some of the issues that we surmount when we're doing this is it's not a bolt-on system because you're using an inherently potentially harmful thing, which is a very, very strong magnetic field. So you have to understand the vehicle, the sensors on the car. And when we start talking about a connected car with a load of sensors on it and you put a strong magnetic field in there, then you need to know a little bit about the impact of that. So we have to touch on that. Type of power level that we may need. Do we want maybe low power at home, 3 kilowatts because it's overnight charging, maybe 6 at work, maybe 20 at the car park at the supermarket, for example. And then, of course, we're talking about scale, and that will be mentioned a lot today. To get scale, you need standards. To get standards, you need cooperation. Standards and cooperation are a bit of an anathema when it comes to business because we spend our whole life trying to differentiate our products so we can charge more for them, and then we get told to sit in a room and collaborate. So it's never easy. And then lastly, this is my last slide, and this is purposely busy because it really does show the comprehensive nature of when you want to introduce a new technology which has got potentially big impacts on pacemakers, the neighbour's cat, the ability for sensors on vehicles to fail if not appropriately dealt with, and also only really works when you scale it. And that's very, very pointed today when we're talking about mobility, which may be in small vehicles which are slow moving and don't need crash protection. You can't have that type of a vehicle on the road with a 40-tonne truck travelling at 100 k's. So there needs to be a scalability which requires standards and compliance and those elements too. So one has to take an overall ecosystem approach. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks very much.